Okay, we are live. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure you guys are coming over from Jonathan's debacle, and you guys are looking for some class, so we will give it to you. Today, we will be talking about why are Black women being gatekept from interracial relationships, and we have a special guest to tell us a little bit something about that. I'm going to play my intro, and we can get straight into it. All right, I'm going to bring Raz on screen. Guys, we have Professor Raz here today, and she's going to tell us a little bit about this topic. I'm going to be here with open ears, pausing to clarify, and other than that, she will take it away, and I will ask questions at the end.
Beautiful. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the gatekeeping of interracial relationships within the Black community primarily. And I'm passionate about this topic because I know it's talked about quite a bit, but I feel like, it's just not talked about in depth enough. And there's not a lot of perspectives that are shared. It's usually just the one side, um, either a Black woman's side or a Black man's side, which is fine. But I don't know. I just wanted to add my own twist to it, my own opinion to it, as well as my own experience with interracial relationships and a lot of the things that I've dealt with um, when navigating them. So, some of the key issues that we're going to be discussing today are primarily it's going to be, well, we're going to start off with how it's sort of a double-edged sword to date out. And we talked about extensively about the Serena Williams debacle situation there, and how she dated out because she always felt like she was portrayed as masculine. And then when she finally dated out, because of her trauma, she got a lot of backlash. And she was basically gaslit by Black men. And a lot of them were telling her, hey, like, you know, we've always loved you, we've always cared for you, we've always treated you with respect. And she was basically gaslit. And, so it's honestly just, it further emphasizes the fact that uh, there is really a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to how people react to Black women dating out. And there's a lack of accountability there. And I would say that, like, I've experienced it, not definitely not to her extent, but I've experienced it to an extent. And I think that a lot of Black women can say the same. Um, the other point that I wanted to talk about, and I am going to bring Petty up to start this one, to bring up his points, is what kind of trauma leads Black women to date out?
Thank you for that. That was a piece. What type of trauma leads Black women to date out? Well, I would assume it's the type of trauma that we talk about frequently, not only on this channel, on Themis's channel, or just in the Black women empowerment space in general, which I'm not a part of, but I engage in that space. Um, Generally, there is discussion about verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, fear of being unalived. Obviously, Cynthia G and I have been going back and forth about why it's probably not even a good idea to remain in the community if you have to fear for your life every time you leave the house. Aside from that, it doesn't just have to be physical threats. What about the degrading comments about your skin color, your hair texture, or your other features? I'm thinking about, again, you brought up Serena Williams, but I think her name is, I can't remember the woman, but she played Precious in the movie Precious, or someone like Monique, who, if they have a bigger body shape or if they have facial features that are more unambiguously Black, they are, or kinky hair texture, they are considered, what's the word? Niggardly. That's not the word, obviously, but um, it's just they're giving these type of negative attributes. So when my entire community of men is just shaming me, degrading me, and even going so far as to kill me, sexual assault, and other types of abuse, why would I stay in this community? Especially when when we beg the men, I'm not black women obviously, but when black women beg the men to do something about all of these issues because black women have a desire to stay in the community, the men generally will kind of dismiss it as, well, not all men, just the men you choose, just the men you're around, you need to do better, pick better. So with all of this considered, why wouldn't black women date out? So it's my opinion, to answer your question, that the type of trauma that leads them to date out is physical, mental, spiritual, sexual abuse, degrading comments, verbal abuse, and a refusal to fix any of that meaningfully. So that's what I would say is causing black women to date out.
Yeah, and I asked your opinion firstly, just to sort of get an outsider view of what you think that trauma is. Like, what do you think it accompanies? And I would say you're like pretty spot on with that. Um, a lot of my experiences with black men have been very much like, I guess there's like a lack of effort when it comes to dating. Like, in my opinion, when it came to black men dating me, there was always a lack of effort. They didn't want to go all out for me. They didn't want to like really go above and beyond for me. It was very much, well, you're settling and it's okay. I'm going to contribute to the reason that you're settling. And there was really, like, I remember like in my last relationship when I left, there was really no effort for me to stay. So, so I would say that like a lot of it may have not been as extreme as a lot of the other examples you put, but definitely a lot of remnants of it are there. So, is there anything else you would like to add?
Um, you said, well, I guess we can discuss it later. I'll save what I want to ask for later, and you can go into your next point if you would like.
For sure. Okay. Um, so we talked about what the trauma that leads black men to date out is, but then if we date out, what difference would dating out make? And I can answer this question. I think that for me personally, we talked, okay, first of all, we discussed like how it statistically black women are less prone to be abused. And then, black women are just less prone to be in unsafe situations, in unsafe environments, um, in unsafe spaces that their partner who is not black would probably not put them in. The other thing we talked about is there's a different masculinity standard. Um, there's less of a likelihood for the non-black man to sort of adhere to this rigid masculinity, which is violent, right? If you adhere to any type of masculinity that's hyper masculinity, for example, um, there's a higher chance of there being violence. So overall, I would say, like, statistically speaking, and also from experience, um, the existence of violent situations are just less likely to be there. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
So when it comes from to black women's benefit to dating out, since we already talked about the type of trauma to lead you to date out, obviously, yes, escaping that trauma and going to a community where statistically black women who date interracially, whether that's white, Asian men, whoever, are less likely to suffer abuse, more likely to have a financially stable household, better outcome for their kids. So yes, I do believe there are statistical advantages as far as benefits for black women dating out. I think there's an expectation, for example, where black men expect you to go 50-50 that we've discussed in the past, or full on, if we look at statistically, full on provide for you, provide a home for you, provide the majority of your finances, and be the head of the household in the sense that we talk about in statistics, as in you bring in the majority of the cash and you pay the majority of the bills and you own the home. So if this is what black women are subject to when they date black men, they're pretty much taking on this type of masculine role of a provider. When you go to let's say white men, for example, they want to take care of you, right? The culture is kind of different. Which, to be fair, the culture being different in white men, and white men are just providers, and that's something that black men use to date white women. That's an excuse they use. They say, oh, white women are submissive or Latin women are submissive. But statistically, for black women, it's true. For black men, it's generally not. So black men are not raised to be the provider. And if they are, as I believe you told me before, it could be at the expense of the woman's mental health. So obviously, leaving that in any way is a benefit, in my opinion. And those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. And we are going to discuss your points, but I honestly have not much else to add to that. I think that's pretty spot on. The next point we wanted to talk about was the performative masculinity that black men ascribe to. Um, that I find a lot of white men specifically do not feel this need to partake in performative masculinity, or at least it's to a lesser degree. And if they do partake in performative masculinity, there's not a lot of like pressure to. A lot of it has to do with them just, being raised obviously with misogynistic ideals, but there's no need to sort of, it doesn't like their survival does not necessarily depend on performative masculinity the way I find a lot of black men. Like it overtakes the personality in a sense. So that would be my point. Since this is about masculinity, I would like your input on it.
Um, so yeah, I do think black men have a sort of conditioning, which I actually briefly talked about with Themis a little bit today, just a little bit, where you are conditioned by the culture, by the men in the society, by society itself, the patriarchy, whatever, as black men to be hyper masculine, while white men have this kind of softer, more emotional. That they're allotted that, I guess you would call it femininity. I wouldn't. I would call it softness and emotionalness. But because black men are conditioned to be this type of hyper masculine, I find that it's not really actually masculinity. It's more of like a performative thing. Whereas I think of masculinity as something like taking care of your children, providing for your household, providing for your children, providing for your woman, treating your woman well. I would consider all of those things masculine, but the type of performative masculinity that's performed in the black community is like anger, aggression, big muscle, work out and make a lot of money, finances. Well, I can't say that's practiced. I can't say finances are practiced generally. I wish they were, but maybe that's my assertion. I think it's a type of performative masculinity in the black community that you don't have to be subject to from other communities.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I think that pretty much summarizes it pretty well. The last point that I'm going to talk about is how there's a lot less thinking that goes into dating a white woman versus a black man dating, or sorry, a black woman dating a white man. Um, and I think this was probably the most interesting point that I thought of, because it's something that I've dealt with myself quite a bit. Um, there's so much at it's honestly, when I was dating out, or when I was starting to date out and sort of give myself that option or opportunity to date out, um, I always thought of like the risks and like, how is this going to affect my children if I have children with this person one day? How is my family going to react to this? There was so much that I thought of, that a lot of things that kind of deterred me from dating out in the first place. Um, and I always tried to think of like, okay, these are the negatives, but what do I gain from this situation? What do I gain from this relationship? I find that a lot of black men don't. A lot of black men don't really put much thought into it, in terms of dating out. They really don't think of anything besides perhaps spiting Black women, or perhaps what's more convenient for them, but they don't really think about the racial aspect. They don't really think about the children. They don't really think about the family dynamic. They don't really fully think of anything that they have to lose. And I think that that's really the biggest difference, at least in my experience, that I find. That's why I don't really fault a lot of Black men for dating out, because there's a lot of caution that comes into with it. Whereas a lot of Black men who date out, there's not a lot of caution, there's not a lot of thought, and so on and so forth. So I would say that that is the biggest difference. And in a lot of circumstances that I've seen interracial dating between both genders, I'm I, I've never been proven wrong. So yeah, if you have any thoughts to add to that.
So that's very interesting. Black men have, in my opinion, well, we'll get into, I'll bring up the study as well I have that I like to go into, but black men have low standards for white women while they have very high standards for black women. What this suggests to me is that black men date white women for social privilege and status, right? Like you said, not a lot of thinking goes into it. She has white skin, that is the qualifier. And I've seen, maybe this is unfair, this is anecdotal or a stereotype, but the caliber of white women who black men get with are just, I mean, overweight, lazy, unattractive. And maybe, again, this is too judgmental, but the fact that, again, these are all things they say they're dating out to avoid having these things like they get when black women. I'm going to date a white woman so I can escape this. But then going to date it, it seems disingenuous when the claim is we're going to date white women for this, and the white women you're dating don't have this. I don't know. So the reasons I've heard, again, for black men dating out generally, oh, our children will be biracial and they'll have curly hair. I don't want dark skinned kids like me. The perceived submission, right? Oh, black women are masculine, they're dominant. I want a nice, sweet, feminine, submissive woman. But again, as I discussed, I think maybe yesterday on Themis's channel, well, I didn't discuss it, but Themis discussed the fact that when black men date white women, there's this type of power dynamic that the white woman uses over them. It's like, my whiteness gives me hierarchy to you that it would not give me if I were dating a white man. So if I'm a white woman dating a white man, I'm subject to the patriarchy, but I can somewhat escape that by dating a black man, which is interesting. So these women have this type of dominance over the men, yet the men are claiming I'm going to date them for submission. All this to say that the reasons that black men say they date out seem like a facade. The masculinity thing, black women are masculine. Again, yesterday, a whole discussion about how white women, Latin women can be masculine as well. In fact, I know several Asian women can be masculine as well. If you even call it, I just call it aggression, and they ascribe masculinity and femininity to it. But it's like you completely ignore these things in the other races while you have a stringent standard on black women, which is interesting to say the least. To the point where one of my old friends would even say something like, "Oh, the crazy Latin girls are the best types. The types that'll take a hammer and break your windshield out, and the type that'll take a screwdriver and stab your car tires. That's how you know she really loves you. I want a woman like that, a nice Latin woman, fiery and spicy or whatever." It's like the same things that they demonize black women for and say that they're dating out to avoid, they actively seek in other women. So it leads me to believe, again, they are just dating out specifically white women for social privilege and status, and not actually much thinking goes into it as far as how this will benefit my family, how this will benefit my lifestyle, and how it will benefit, other than my kids will have nice hair texture and I will get submission. That does not exist. Now black women, as you said, and if you want to interrupt at any time you can, but oh no, London Link, I didn't say getting stabbed, I said stabbing out his car tires. Although I have heard men say, oh, crazy Latin woman stabbed me, that just means she loves me. You know how Latin girls, I've heard that as well. But black women in my opinion, date for legitimate benefits, like you said, in the relationship. And like we described the benefits in dating out, in the trauma that you face from dating in. So, as opposed to dating a white man because he's white, he has white skin, they have this type of high standards that have to be met, right? Generally, white men, you have to be a provider, you have to be a protector, you have to have stable income, you have to be well educated. It's like black women, either they are extremely race loyal or they only date out when extremely high standards are met as far as the quality in their relationship that they can get from a white, Asian, whoever man. And or maybe it's a combination of both. They are race loyal and therefore to date out these high standards have to be met. So it seems like black women are dating again for legitimate benefits in their personal life and relationship and the outcomes of how their children will turn out, while black men, it's like social status. I find that black men's reasons for dating out lack legitimacy, especially when we look into the data around what they're saying they're dating out for versus what they actually get. And that's all I have to say on that. Polar said we date and marry out for the social benefits. I'm gonna star that, and I might ask that you come up later. But was that the last thing on your outline, Raz?
Yeah, we can move on to your outline and look at the points on that one.
So the first thing I wanted to ask is why, obviously the title of the live stream, why is there more of a stigma for black women who date out than black men? Especially when statistically speaking, black men date out more than any other group of men. And you can answer that if you like, or I can go straight into mine answer.
Okay, I think like the main thing that I think of as why the stigma exists is because there's more of an expectation for black women to deal with less or to deal with abuse or to put up with it. Whereas black men are not expected to stick around if things aren't serving them. So I think that that's mainly why the stigma exists. It's like, oh, well, if you're being mistreated, aren't you used to that? Aren't you, isn't this something you're accustomed to? Like, why are you complaining now? Whereas with black men, they're allotted that space to say that they don't want to tolerate something. So I think that's mainly where the stigma comes from. I'm not sure if you have anything else.
Um, well, first, I was going to ask, is the stigma true? I should have asked that first. Because the name of the study that I dropped into the chat, a little more ghetto, a little less cultured. Are there racial stereotypes about interracial daters in the United States by Renee Flores? When I was reading through this, it actually suggested that white women, black male interracial pairings face the most scrutiny, which I was really surprised on because generally I've always seen black men advocated for dating out and like having the kind of leeway and grace and freedom to date out without being judged that much as far as the black community. So I was really surprised to see that actually they are the stigmatized group. But when I read that study further, and let me drop a link to it in the chat as well if you guys would like to go and read that real quick. When I read it further, it turns out that the black male white woman interracial relationship is scrutinized in the white community from white men. So white men, when they look at black men and white women, see both of those people as degenerate. The study describes the white man's response to this as like she's some derogatory sexual terms that I won't say on stream, as well as he's dragging her value down. It's as if she's taking a hit of value by dating out. And I thought, okay, maybe this is because she's dating a black man. But when I went over to the black community, it was black woman and white man relationships that faced the most scrutiny from black men. So I don't think it's because white women are dating down socially I think it's because the women are dating out of the group, regardless of which group it is. Because white men, again, in this same study, white men, when white men partner with black women, from the white community, they do not face the same scrutiny that white women face. So white men are able to date out with no issue, no judgment. Obviously, there is some judgment, but compared to the women, no issue, no judgment, and no scrutiny. White women date out and they are demonized for it. When we go over to the black community, the study, again, black men and white women are able to date out, and in the black community it is seen as fine. But when black women date out with white men, it's seen as, again, atrocity. She's fast, she's loose, she's a H word, she's a race betrayer, etc., etc., etc. The reason for this was not clear based on the study. The conclusion of the study was, yes, this stereotype does exist specifically for the women in every group, apparently. And like True Mystique says, the issue is patriarchy. I would like to explore that more in the future, but the study just did not go into it very well, in my opinion, and maybe I missed something. So why is there more of a stigma for black women who date out versus black men? The simple answer is patriarchy, and maybe the idea of men having, again, in a patriarchy, this possessive nature over the women. How dare you go against the black man's, I'll stay on the black community, how dare you go against the black man's desire for partnership with you? Your body belongs to us, your soul belongs to us, your womb belongs to us, and for you to give it to another group of men, you have betrayed us in the black patriarchy, if you want to call it that. It touches on it a tad in Is Marriage for White People. Maybe I will give it a reread because I may have completely missed that. Have you ever read that book, Raz, Is Marriage for White People by Ralph Richard Banks? I think it's also a study.
I haven't, no.
It details, again, what's that?
It sounds interesting.
It details kind of what we talked about today in regards to black women facing a type of trauma in the community. I don't think he goes into femicide and absent father rapes, I don't think, but he does talk about just the type of dating nature of black men generally when black women remain race loyal to them, and how when there's this type of imbalance in the community where the women are, number one, outnumbering the men, and number two, outpacing the men as far as education and finances. Now the group of eligible men for you, if the women are making good money and getting good education and the men are not, then those few men who do have now this type of, again, power imbalance, combined with the fact that there are just less black men in general, creates a type of degenerate dating culture. Maybe the degenerate is such a harsh word that I use a lot. Maybe I'll stop. But a type of degenerate culture where the men are able to get the women sexual in the relationship earlier. The men are sleeping around with a lot of different women at once and having concurrent relationships with each other, and they're getting married less. They're getting married a lot later in life. So yeah, that's kind of what that touches on. I'd like to maybe do a review on that someday. But again, why is there more stigma for black women who date out? The simple answer is patriarchy and male possessiveness in the United States in general, which of course would be, again, we talked about how hyper it is, this type of performative masculinity and possessiveness in the black community. So I believe that's why there's a stigma against that. Sorry, I've been monologuing. Did you have anything to add?
No, I think you basically covered all my thoughts. So we can go on to the next point.
My next question, you talked about how dating in versus dating out is a double-edged sword, and how we touched on the trauma that, again, not every black woman and every black man have this same story, but generally this is generalizable to our community. A black woman dating black men will have a sort of trauma that she receives from them. But then when you date out, there's this type of hatred and vitriol, as the study describes. You're a whore, you're a slut, you are betraying your community, how dare you, you are our property and you are not being used how we want you to. And to further touch on that, why is there a type of gaslight after you choose to date out. Again, you brought up Serena Williams and the fact that, from what I remember when I was younger, Serena Williams used to get absolutely dragged by black men. They used to compare her to a monkey, a gorilla. They used to make fun of her nose, her facial features in general. They used to make fun of how she did her makeup. They'd make fun of her edges or lack thereof. They'd make fun of her hair texture, her hairstyle. They'd make fun of her build. Oh, you're masculine. Women aren't supposed to look like that. How dare you? And all of a sudden, after after Serena Williams finds a white man, I think she married the founder of Reddit. Now the black men suddenly have no recollection of any of this stuff that happened in the past. Treated Serena bad where? We love Serena. Serena, won't you come back to the you're betraying us. How dare you? It seems kind of, what's the word? Disingenuous? No, I said it earlier. Gaslighting. It seems like gaslighting. Like, again, at the very beginning of this live, I think I talked a little about how, as opposed to fixing the issues in the community and improving the men generally, the men prefer to just say to the women, no, you're imagining it, not all men. Well, I never said that about you. You're just looking at the wrong men. Why is there this need to just completely, you made it up? It doesn't exist. It's not real. I'm not sure. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the reason that they gaslight black women is because when they talk to black women in this way, it's normal, right? It's normal for them to call black women all these names. It's normal for them to, verbally abuse black women, essentially. It's normal, it's ingrained, it's embedded. And so when this behavior is directly called out, it's like, oh, we didn't say that, because it sounds more harsh than them actually doing the action, if that makes sense. So they'll normalize, or this behavior is very normalized. Them calling out black women out their name is very normalized to them. It's not as harsh as it may seem to the outside. Like, when I hear these things, it's shocking to me. But for a lot of black men that would say these things, it's not. It's normal, right? It's very much ingrained. It's embedded. And so when you call out this behavior saying, hey, you said this to me, it's like, no, I didn't say all that, even if they did in reality. So it kind of, emphasizing their behavior in their minds is like, oh my God, I didn't actually say that. Because it is normal to them to say that, right? It's not as harsh as we make it sound, at least not to them. I would say that that's kind of why. Um,
Are you ending there, or did your mic cut out? I think your mic cut out, Raz, if you're speaking. Okay. Well, just to touch on what she said a little bit, I do think there is some truth to that. And I didn't think about that because I was just confused. Why the gaslight? But if you think this type of behavior is normal, and I do think black men think this type of behavior towards the women is normal. Oh, are you back, Raz? Okay. I do think this type of behavior from the men is normalized. They think it's normal. Because we've talked before about, oh,
Hi. Is there two of me?
yeah, I think something weird happened.
Oh, okay. Is it good now?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. What did I end at?
You were saying how black men believe the behavior is normalized.
Yeah. So the behavior is like normal to them, right? It's not as, I guess it's not as a big deal for them to say these things because it is so ingrained in their day-to-day conversation. So when you point out these negative things that they say in their day-to-day conversation, when you kind of pick at the things that they say every day, it seems a lot more harsh or a lot more, abusive than they see it as. So I would say that that's a big reason. I think when I cut off, I was also going to say it's like a lack of responsibility on Black men's end. Like they just don't want to be held responsible for these things. They don't want to be held responsible for anything negative that they do or say or any negative actions. And so them running away from this responsibility um, is ultimately why they mistreat Black women, at least in my opinion. And it's ultimately why I feel like this back and forth conversation just never seems to end, because the black men are trying to confront the situation, and then Black men are sort of running away from it every time it's brought up. So it seems like the conversation is just not being had, because one person's trying to bring forth the problem, another person is trying to escape it. And so ultimately, I think it embeds the stigma in our community, because conversations are not being had. I think if conversations were being had, if more Black men held other Black men accountable, um, then perhaps this wouldn't be such a big deal. This wouldn't be as common. The stigma wouldn't be as embedded. But unfortunately, not enough Black men are holding each other accountable. And I think it starts there. It starts within the men's group before it can extend to the community as a whole.
If you had a scene today, this Psychology Today study we talked about, where a man said, the reason that men are lonely and single is because men don't want to develop skills. Women want men with skills, and men don't want to develop them, so women are choosing to leave the men alone. And the women's response was like, yeah, that's spot on. And the men's response, no, he has it completely wrong. It's all these women's fault. It's like they've normalized being below average as far as it comes to communication skills and just relationship skills generally. So yeah, again, you might have missed it because the mic was being weird. But I said that's a point I didn't think about, how maybe this is normalized. So they might not even feel like they're gaslighting anybody. It might not be intentional. They might legitimately think, and I do think this is real, the degenerate behavior is just normal, to the point where, again, when we have a conversation about absent fathers or fatherless homes, it's always framed as single moms. It's like, the dad left, why police him? Why go and try to make him raise his children? It's up to you as a woman to make him stay, or pick a good man who doesn't leave. And you got to vet the men and set standard boundary expectation, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's legitimately normalized for the men to be degenerate and you to just figure out how to navigate the community, which is interesting to say the least. So I would agree with you there. As far as dating Black men being traumatic, but then dating out being, you face scrutiny and hatred, how do you navigate that? Is there one side that you lean to more than the other? I think you said earlier you date, you have opened your options, right? You date more than just Black men. Is that correct? You don't have to disclose if you don't want to.
Yeah. But can you clarify the question? Like, just clarify.
So you said dating in versus out is a double-edged sword. As far as, you get trauma generally from dating Black men, but from dating out, you get hatred from Black men. So you face also, either side you go to, you face a type of trial or tribulation. Is there a side that you lean to more?
Um, Honestly, I try my best to sort of stay in the middle and just sort of, I guess, hear both sides, even though both sides are attacking me. Um, Not that I've been like severely attacked for dating out or anything like that, because I don't really disclose who I date that often. I don't publicize my dating life. But to the people that I do publicize, there's always a fear of, or people that I disclose that I'm dating out to, there is always a fear of judgment, especially if they're a Black man, especially if they are one of the few Black men that I still have in my life. I always have this fear of being scrutinized, especially if the person in my life partner, is not Black. Um, I can't have, I feel like I don't have much control in that. If I love the person I love, then that's what it is. And I think for a lot of, that's how I view it. But for a lot of Black men, especially, they don't really see that. They can't really comprehend that. And I think for me, there's always sort of been an expectation to like put up with a lot of the bullshit that they put me through, and I'm just not willing to accommodate anymore. I think at one point I was, and after so many bad and traumatic experiences, I can't have I don't have it in me to do that anymore. And so I wouldn't say that there's a side that I lean towards. I think the way that I personally cope with it is I stopped publicizing who I'm with because I don't want to deal with that judgment anymore. I don't know if that's a proper resolution for people, because I mean, you like a Black woman. Definitely, I'm definitely a supporter of Black women, like openly talking about who they date and openly showcasing their love and relationship. For me personally, um, it's kind of a way to guard myself by just keeping my life private, keeping my partners private, and protecting them as much as I can from scrutiny, because um, they don't deserve to be scrutinized because of my community, especially if I'm being treated with respect. I just feel like it's at that point it's just unnecessary, um, and yeah, I'm I'm not with that.
Now, I'm not a black woman. And first of all, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But when it comes to, on one hand, I'm being killed, beaten, sexually abused, physically abused, etc., or left single mothers, and on the other hand, they are pointing at me and chastising me, shaming me, calling me race betrayer. I'm I'm going to go with sticks and stones break. I'm not going to go with sticks and stones breaking my bones. I'm going to go with words because they do not hurt me. And I don't feel like it's, even if you date black men, like we discussed earlier, you can still face a type of verbal slandering, even if they don't call you a race betrayer or something like that. It can still be your, I mean, look at Serena Williams. It can be your hair style, hair texture, your body build, your athleticism, whatever. Even lately, they're calling black women who own homes masculine, whatever that means. So in my opinion, if there's a side I lean to more for black women, it would be dating out. Although I'm not a divester person. Um, so when we call it a double-edged sword, I can't say that I see it as equal when on one side you are being killed and on the other side you are being talked about. Um, but I understand where you're coming from and what you're saying, and I do appreciate your attempt to kind of remain nuanced in this. If you had no questions on that, I'm just gonna move to my next thing. Okay.
Okay, I'm good. Sorry.
The next thing I was going to ask was the type of difficulty black women may face from dating interracially. We already covered obviously scrutiny from black men, but maybe the less, or maybe they are pretty talked about. I think they're talked about amongst black women if black women are, as we can see from the data, not really dating out like that. But there's a type of cultural difference. There's a risk of being fetishized. There's the risk of your partner being unrelatable. And what I wanted to play is this short clip, and then we could react to that, and as well as I'll restate the question.
Wanted to scrub her feet like she does back home.
Yeah, it feels good on the feet. I actually miss it.
What do you need the bucket for?
To scrub my feet.
You know, there's water in the bathtub upstairs of the shower. Okay. All right, I'm gonna at least carry it for you.
Yeah, it's right there. My goodness, just like oh, that's why my cat sit in the door.
That's true.
Another day.
I have to see this. Why are you pouring it on the ground?
I want it clean.
You want the ground clean?
Yes.
What is the rock for?
It's so clean.
Yeah, I want to see why you needed it clean.
See?
Just scrubbing.
It's magic.
Magic. You know there's pumice stone upstairs.
I don't even know what that is.
So that's what the rock's for.
Really, really helps.
Oh my gosh. And
I'll smile, I know what it takes to fool this dog.
Okay.
I don't know what that was at the end. So we have this couple, this white zaddy and black queen. We'll call it. No. But no. The point of this video again is just, to me, was an example of having an extreme cultural difference in your partner. Possibly the idea of you being even though this part wasn't sexual, the idea of you being fetishized because you're a foreign woman and you do foreign things, and that's so like being a spectacle in your relationship as opposed to being a partner. Really, why did he record this and put it online? That is a good question. Now, I won't show the comments, but in the comments he said, let me pull it up. He said, we've been married for 17 years. We have 3 children together. I've visited her country for extended periods of time. So stop talking about I'm disrespectful and I don't know the... Now, I'm concerned that you've been around this woman for 20 years and you've been in her country for years and years, and you say you're so intimate with their culture, have children with them, but this is the way that you act after 20 years of marriage. It seems... what's the word? Patronizing. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I say all this not to discourage Black women from dating out, but just to maybe bring up some issues people may face, well, Black women may face when it comes to dating white men. And obviously that's an extreme. Like, not all white men are about to be there and talking about, "Ooh, my chocolate beautiful queen, you blah blah blah." But how do you navigate something like that when it comes to dating, and do you think that affects Black women's decision to date in or out?
Yeah, so I know you and I talked about this privately, but the way that I've dealt with situations like this, or possibly dealing with something like this, is dating what I call spicy white men. And when I say spicy white, this isn't to take away from the fact that they're white and that they obviously have privilege, but when I say spicy, I mean, and that's a very informal term, but I say that as in people who have a little bit of culture. So, like Eastern European, Jewish, even white people who have lived outside of where they're originally from for extended periods of time. And it's kind of shitty, honestly, to have to, even have that expectation and to really think of it this much. But the reason I do that is so that at least there's some type of common ground. In my current relationship, I know I don't really want to talk about it that much because I really don't want it to be the point of this, but he is, he's Jewish and he's also Eastern European. So with him, it's like a little bit easier to have that common ground and to sort of have because there's a little bit of a relatability aspect there. I find that I can relate to him so much more than I would be able to someone who is not from the same culture and the same background that he is. So that's just to give an example. And again, I honestly didn't intentionally date him for that reason. It just turned out that we both had a very similar upbringing, despite the fact that he's actually not of color, but still, because of his culture, because of the religious aspect as well that he grew up with and all of that, it's a lot easier to like complain to him or to talk to him about things. Also, the fact that he, grew up with a lot of people who are Black and a lot of people who are of color, and I'm not his first Black girlfriend. Like, there's so many other things that go into it. It's not just the fact that he has a similar cultural background to me, but it's also the fact that of his environment. And I think the two things together have really made it easy for us to have like a common ground. I wish everyone has this experience. Unfortunately, not. Not every Black woman experiences this, and it's sad that like a lot of Black women have to deal with fetishizing and have to deal with their culture basically being scrutinized and laughed at. And I can honestly see that would be very traumatizing as well. And that would be another form of trauma that Black women would have to deal with. So it honestly feels like, and I think this video shows that, obviously we know the issues with dating Black men and dating in, but then we also have a lot of trauma that could potentially um, come into play with dating out. So it, again, double-edged sword there. And I wouldn't say that it's equal, because I think um, one can definitely be dealt with and another one, or not dealt with necessarily, but one can be resolved and the other one may not have much of a resolution. But regardless, um, that's my experience and that's how I navigate it. It has worked so far and I hope it continues to work. But um, I can't promise that everyone will have that same experience. And perhaps even like in my relationship, us having like somewhat of a similar background may not be enough, right? For a lot of people, that's not enough. For me, it is. But for some people, it isn't. For some people, they want someone that they can fully relate to and not just, relate to partially, and in some ways they can't. I find in my current relationship, the only way that we differ is the fact that like he can navigate society differently than I do. But in terms of our upbringing, our the way we grew up, the way that we deal with things, I would say we're very similar, and that's why it works. Um, but again, it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's also valid.
Okay, and maybe it's wrong of me to downplay what it can be like to be fetishized. Obviously, that example I showed is an extreme example where she's like a kink or a novelty item to him. But cultural differences, just generally, do you feel like an unrelatable or an unrelatable partner or a partner with a cultural difference from you, do you feel like that is an issue that can be resolved?
Um, that's a good question. I do think that with time it can resolve. And I think that it's something that, I mean, it can resolve, but also it is quite exhausting to resolve it. Um, I wouldn't personally, like, if my current partner um, was not relatable to me right off the bat, I don't think I would stick around. And the reason I really stuck around was because there was still that common ground. There was the aspect of his religious upbringing, and then the cultural upbringing, and the fact that he grew up with so many people of color. If it wasn't for that as a baseline standard, I don't think I would stay. And I don't expect any Black woman to stay, because that is something that is, to be honest, that's something to me that's been very crucial for the relationship to work, because I feel comfortable complaining to him. I feel comfortable talking to him about things. I feel comfortable discussing race and gender and issues. And I even talk to him about my own trauma with Black men. And I feel like he may not fully understand, and of course I don't expect him to. He's white at the end of the day. But at least I can comfortably talk to him about things and not feel like I'm just talking to a wall. And that is the experience I hope every Black woman can have. But that's not an experience that I think is that common. And again, that's why when it came to dating out, I was extremely cautious, because I was afraid of what would happen in that video to happen to me. Um, and so, again, there's a lot at stake when it comes to choosing a partner, especially as a Black woman, especially as a Black woman who comes from trauma, or like comes from a place of fetishization. Um, there's a lot at stake. And there's a lot of thinking that goes into choosing a partner. And unfortunately, there is so much pressure on us, on top of the fact that we need to choose a partner that's compatible. There's also this pressure to like have kids at a certain age, and and maybe that's like going out of the realm of this conversation. But yes, I think that like this pressure to be married by a certain age, this pressure to have children by a certain age, this pressure to sort of have your life together by the age of 35, it's a lot. And I think that like picking a partner and having that solely be on your shoulders, on top of the pressures that society expects of you, it's a lot. And I wish that I could say that I could sit here and say that there's a clear resolution to this. Unfortunately, there isn't. And yeah, it really does. It's not the greatest thing.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I have two more questions. I'm going to ask my first question, and now I will open the panel and drop the link in the comments for anyone who would like to come up and ask further question after we finish. Um, Trauma is the life of a Black woman. It seems like it, at least in America. Well, actually, all over the world, apparently. Hi, Tiff. Welcome. And hello, Lux. The next question I had, I wanted to know your thoughts on race loyalty. How do you feel about, well, tell me how you feel about race loyalty, or do you need more clarification?
Race loyalty is an interesting concept. I think race loyalty stems from things that we were taught as we were growing up as little girls, I think, or at least for me, that's something that I was taught. And my parents always instilled in me that they really wanted me to embrace my culture, especially because I'm not American. I'm from Canada, but my background is Northeast African. So I definitely don't come from the same place as many people here. But, I grew up with this mentality that, you need to keep the culture alive. It's your responsibility to keep the culture alive. It's your responsibility to keep the language alive. And so race loyalty is something that I personally grew up with quite a bit. And as I diverged from that as I got older, um, it's something that I still strongly believe that I hope Black women escape. I think Black women should at least question why they are loyal and why they embrace race loyalty. That's my opinion on it. I think that it's there, and I think that it's something, and I honestly feel, and this is something that maybe not everyone agrees with, I think a lot of Black people instill race loyalty, especially into Black women, as a way of protecting them, because they feel, at least our parents and our families may feel, that we are at a safer space and at a safer spot to like exist if we are with a Black partner, if we are raising a Black family. And perhaps it's not from a malicious point. However, I do encourage the Black women question why they are still, dating just within their community and culture, and why they're putting up with so much, or at least just to tweak their standards. It's not necessarily that you have to date out to escape Black loyalty. You just have to question it. You just have to question, why am I tolerating this? Why am I lowering my standards? So that's my opinion on Black loyalty. I don't necessarily think it's something that, like, the solution to Black loyalty is not dating out. The solution to Black loyalty is addressing it, understanding it, and raising your standards. Because Black loyalty in itself, just to me, it simply means that you are dating Black men who do not meet your standards, and you just need to raise them. That's about it. Black loyalty does not necessarily mean that you have to date out. Black loyalty does not mean that you have to stop dating Black men altogether. It just means you need to change your perspective and raise your standards. So, yeah.
So I think you have a more in the middle view of race loyalty, where it's not good, not bad, kind of what you make of it. It's up to you to wake up, see the faults in this, and make sure you're not having these low standards for the sake of a Black man or whatever. But race loyalty, to me, I think has a more negative connotation. To me, it's more about giving up your personal desires for the sake of the community, right? The community, in the same way in which you think of a marriage, in that sometimes, even though you want something, you forego it for the sake of your wife. Maybe you are out there in horny or whatever, but you remain loyal. Maybe you lack faith in the future of your relationship, but you remain committed and seek, like, to me, it's a type of commitment that requires you giving up your personal desires sometimes for the sake of the community. So it would be like your individual relationship wants, and then on the other side, you have foregoing your own happiness for, again, the sake of the community. So I think in that way it has a negative connotation because I generally disagree with the race loyalty. It seems unnecessary. Like you said, I'm lately questioning why is it even a thing in the first place. Um, I think it's better to, as far as, especially as far as a relationship, to serve your own interest first. This is, maybe you are different in that there are some people and cultures and families who the family is a part of the relationship, the community is a part of the relationship, and they're close knit like that. But I tend to feel like you should not be seeking a relationship based on how the community feels, what the community finds appropriate, how your family thinks. You should generally be doing it for you, your personal desires, your what you want to be happy in a relationship and in your life. So the thought of saying I will forego this self fulfillment for the sake of black love, I guess, is odd to me, and I disagree with it. But in your case, when you say you can still date black, just standards, boundaries, expectations, so that you're not with anybody. That way, you can still be with a black man and have the race loyalty without the degeneracy. So I wouldn't disagree with you there. I just think I have a negative view on it generally.
I do want to just add that, like, yes, I do agree that obviously you should have a more individualist type of thinking when it comes to your relationship. However, the reason that I said that I guess have more of a middle of the ground sort of understanding of dating, especially when it comes to race loyalty, is because a lot of people can't escape um, this collectivist ideology. And in my culture and where I grew up, a lot of the times that's how it is. It's you are doing things to serve the people around you, and so you don't always have, you're not allotted that space to um, date for yourself or marry for yourself or whatever, because that's not how you grew up. So it's, of course, yes, it's to me, it's less about, sorry, just give me a sec.
Mm.
It's less about um, being with someone for yourself, and it's more about also serving that collectivist, the people that are around you as well. It's I think it's less about the relationship and more about the way you grew up. But that's where I stand.
Okay. My last question um, is regarding your feelings on the type of hypocrisy of, I think we spoke a little earlier about how black men will date out very easily if they feel slightly unliked by black women. Um, we referenced Donald Glover, and I also would pose the type of demographic who refer to themselves as the educated lame. I was nerdy, no black woman wanted me, so I went over to, white women. And the type of hypocrisy that seems to be to me when, as we can see from this study, black men will literally call black women who date out of their race, out of their name, extremely derogatory names sexually, um, as far as end race betrayers. So doesn't it seem kind of hypocritical when, again, it's as easy as one black woman say you're nerdy, and that is enough to push you over into white women?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's hypocritical. And I think that it shows that it just takes so much more for a black woman to date out. Um, and yeah, absolutely, I think it is race loyalty, but just in one way. I don't think that black men, and I don't know if you brought this up, I don't think black men experience race loyalty at all. Um, because it takes very little for Black men to date out. It takes a lot more for a Black woman to date out. It took a lot more for me to date out. It took a lot of thinking. It took a lot of debating. It took a lot of questioning. It took a lot for me to fully commit myself to a non-Black man. Whereas I think um, for a lot of Black men, it really doesn't take that much. And again, with Donald Glover's case, I mean, I listened to Donald Glover since I was quite young, and I didn't recognize the fact that he was, you know, very much against dating Black women, and it really didn't take much for him to call Black women out their name. And even recently, he had this intervention with a Black woman or whatever. It was like a self interview and how he talked about his life and interracial dating and stuff like that. And everyone's entitled. Again, I think we talked about this privately, you and I, about how I think it is possible potentially for a Black man to date out and still remain a pro-Black and still remain valid. But the likelihood of that happening is quite slim. And so yeah, it I would say that it definitely, I definitely think that race loyalty is only one sided. I think race loyalty is only ever brought up when it pertains to Black women. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, those are the end of my questions. If anyone in the chat has a question for Raz or for myself, you can type it, or the link is pinned if you would like to come up and say your thoughts on anything that we've said throughout the live. But outside of that, I'm going to close out. And Raz, if you would like to say any final thoughts, conclusion, summary of anything we've talked about today, you can. Um, I'm going to play my outro after that, and we can have a short after show.
Sure. I think that our discussion today was just, productive. I think that we addressed a lot of things, a lot of perspectives, and I'm glad that I was given the space to talk about something that was very heavy on my mind. um, I think the conclusion is that I encourage Black women to seek out what makes them happy, regardless of how people feel about it and how their society feels about it. Um, and I hope that discussions like this can be had more often, and I also hope that more Black men can listen in on these conversations and understand our perspectives and understand, and not that their understanding is conducive to our happiness, but it will help and be conducive to us not being attacked. And I think that's the role that I would like Black women to play, or Black men to play, in this conversation. So I think that's all I really have to say. And yeah.
Thank you. London Link says, let's be real, the Black women who they want don't want them. Their egos be hurt. I don't even okay. It's not that I don't agree with this. It's that, so we know that Black women date down generally as far as socioeconomic status, and based on Ralph Richard Banks' book and study, we can see that when it does come to those educated lames, right, who are um just so educated apparently, and nobody wants them, we can see that the opposite is true generally. Black women again are crowding around those few educated men that there are in the community, and apparently just fighting each other tooth and nail for this very small group of Black kings. So if there's a educated lame out there and he's saying no Black woman wanted me, I'm questioning him, because there has to be some type of extreme social skill, lack of social skills, or lack of just ability to talk to, I don't know what it is, for you to be completely abrasive to a group of women who literally statistically are throwing themselves at you. You have to be doing something wrong. And as we can see from this study that came out from Psychology Today, they are doing something wrong. as opposed to acknowledging it. Let me go get a white woman who will look. Yeah, I'm seeing black men out here naked with a leash on, and the white girl walking him around. Whatever. White girls treat them better, apparently. I don't know. But yeah, I do think they also be going for women out of it's the men who are like, women only want a tall, fit, masculine guy, and then the women they're going after are very beautiful and probably out of their league. Like, anyway. Black women are taught to protect the race, while black men are taught to level up by any means necessary, aka dating out or lighter or brighter. So yeah, I do think dating white women is seen as a level up, definitely, to black men. As well as, you guys obviously probably just came over from Jonathan when I was asking Jonathan about what ways can we improve character, morals in the community? How can we teach the young men to stop killing, to provide, to protect? His answer was, go to the gym and work out and get your money up. It's like there's no, even from the established men, there is no teaching about how to treat the women in the community. It's just like, get some money and work out so you can get access to them. Don't actually work on, I don't know, improving your social skills or protection or providing. Don't worry about that. And remember, when we asked him for examples of good black men, he said NBA players who are, prolifically known for being extremely good husbands, very non-abusive men, don't cheat, don't have children outside of wedlock, outside of the marriage, and just very good men in general. Those basketball players, we know statistically. So I don't know. It is what it is. This was interesting, Raz. You should come on again sometime. They love you. Don't you guys love Raz? Can we get a W Raz in the chat? A W Raz, please. Like, how I got a guest up here, ain't nobody said hello to my guest. Ain't nobody said thank you for coming on to so y'all are just rude and want to make me look like an ass on my own channel in front of my company. I'm so sorry, Raz. They do not know how to act.
It's okay.
They do not know how to act. Plus, you don't have to super chat. You can just write a comment and I'll read it.
Super chat. What is that?
No, I can't. I don't have them turned on. I can't turn them on until your phone line is busy. Let me go to the after show so we can be ghetto. My bad, y'all. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for watching. My name is Prince Petti. This has been Man with a Mic, and this has been Raz as well. So give her a thanks as well. Raz, you can stay on if you want, or you can hop off. I'm gonna get into the after show where I'm just gonna read the comments and probably play a degenerate video that we gonna react to. Thank you everybody.
Bye.
Not I left the super chat on the screen during my outro. I'm so ghetto over here. I'll do better in the future. Thank you, WRAZ, WRAZ, WRAZ. They love you. Oh, wait, was that? Oh, okay. He doesn't want to teach if other men don't upgrade themselves. He has no competition, which is why he said he's not helping. Crabs in a bucket, like, forget the black community doing better, forget black children needing father figures and role models, forget black men killing black women, black men not making any money generally, forget all of that, because it's going to threaten me in my position. I mean, that's a very elitist view to have. I don't want the poor people to do better because then I'll have to work. But let me bring up this Psychology Today study, because the way this man in the Psychology Today study said men are threatened by the idea of having to do better. And the way Jonathan said, instead of doing better in my own country, I'm going to go to a third world country where I can spend $50 and get a white, like, instead of doing better, I'm going to go somewhere where women expect less and I don't have to do as much. And instead of improving my community, because that would make me look average at best, I'm just going to let the community continue in degeneracy, even if it costs the lives of our own women, men, and children. But whatever. Whatever. Maybe the black community is doomed, guys. You had me in a broken live stream. No, Vitamin, I believe you need to learn how to work the internet because it ain't no way. Earlier, Vitamin said my live stream didn't start on time. No, I refuse to believe it because one thing about my God is he's always on time. And not on your time. Thank you for coming, Raz. Really. Plusa. Did Plusa have something to say? I think she said she wanted to send a super chat, but you can just type it if you wanted to ask something, or the link to join is up there if you want to hop on. Teaching men to be subpar. Yep. Okay, let's get out of these comments and let me bring up this thing. Let me see if I can find this thing. Y'all, the way I've been going back in Themis's live, you know what we're going to do for Women-Centered Wednesday instead of what I was about to do? Let me see. Let me see if I can find this clip. I had beef with somebody. I think I had beef with Concerned. I never knew this, guys, but back when I first joined the Themis community and started coming up, I had beef with Concerned and another woman, and I'm looking for... Okay, let me put this on the screen for you guys. This was an interaction I had with a woman on Themis' channel, and today I'm going to publicly apologize to her since it's Women-Centered Wednesday. Let me go here. We were talking about is marriage for white people. Oh, look at that. We were talking about is marriage for white people. Look at me. Let's make that full screen.
I forgot his name. The one that said women should be feminine. That's who you should be speaking to. Because Prince Petti is going to say he doesn't want a submission. He doesn't care about femininity. And like, it won't go anywhere. Like,
no, yeah, I understand that he made something, he made a point. Then this is what I'm trying to say. Now he's saying that the woman should make a decision, but then you want to lead and be this and that. But then why you always leaving the problems on the woman?
Yeah, but he doesn't believe in male leadership.
Yeah, but
I mean, you can't argue that. Like, I mean, you can, but like, it wouldn't, like, no matter what you say, if someone doesn't believe in male leadership, then all you can do is drag them for their belief, which is fine. But like, it doesn't, you cannot argue with someone who just has a completely different view than you.
No, I'm not. But listen, I was just trying to point out. You see, they contradict themselves too much because that's my whole point. You understand? Like, black women are masculine. Okay. So what's the solution? Oh, well, you come up with the solution. You see what my whole point? Yeah. You understand? So if you're talking about black women are so masculine, but at the end of the day, you leaving everything for us to take care of. What do you expect? You see what I'm saying? You understand where I'm coming from, right? So if you're saying that black women are so masculine, and then now we're coming to you to give you the role to say, hey, what's the solution, black man?
I think I rewinded too far. I just wanted to pause. Shout out to LB. We miss LB. Hope she's doing well.
Oh, I don't know. You make a decision. You guys can do. Okay, that was my whole point.
But if you are masculine, come up with a solution. That was my point.
Well, I mean, Petti's just going to rest in his femininity.
I'm done. I love you. The show is wonderful.
Earlier.
No, you're fine. The thing is,
I have no sense.
If you made a point earlier that
I don't know. Did that not seem rude? Did that not seem rude to y'all? I was like, you masculine, so make a solution if you masculine. Like she admit, it just feels like I was attacking this woman, and that felt unfair. And I went back and watched it because I was looking for clips for the men. But that's what happened. Yeah, we do miss LB and Deanne. But Deanne is doing her Bible study, which we will all be there for. But I just wanted to publicly apologize to Brown Foxy or whoever was talking to me because that seemed rude. That seemed a little rude. That's not even actually, now that I think about it, that's not even the clip. The clip was a little shortly after that. But I got even more rude with the next woman, and I don't know why. That seems really, really not masculine. So today on Women-Centered Wednesday, I would like to apologize on behalf of young Prince Petti. Old Prince Petti would like to apologize. We are now 8 months into the Black women empowerment journey. So that is all, guys. Now you have seen my shameful moment on the internet that you can go and look up if you would like. I'm going to end my live stream. Raz, oh, you a little quiet. You got anything to say? Are you judging me?
No, I just gotta go.
Okay. Well, have a good night. Thank you for
Okay.
coming on.
All right. Bye. Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye.
Yeah, guys, like in the rest of the video, some woman is like, it felt like she was tearing up, like emotional. She was like, see, this is the problem. We try to come up here and talk about things, and you do X, Y, and Z, and this is why it's so we're talking about how dangerous it is in the Black community. And my response to her was literally like, okay, then leave. And I was rewatching it, and I was like, I don't know. I was internally screaming. Why would I say that? Good night, guys. I'm going to end my live stream now. The movie Saturday, I'm doing a live stream. It is going to be about bonnets, whether or not they should be in public. I hope a free will be there. If a free is watching, I hope a free will be there, because it seems like y'all are vehemently opposed against this. And anyone else who has an issue with wearing a bonnet in public, I want you to be there as well. Because bonnets are just something that we do. Okay. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Should you be able to wear a bonnet in public? Is it ghetto? And we're going to be talking about clothes generally. Sunday, we were going to be reviewing Sandman because everybody voted to review Sandman, but I had made a prior obligation to review Lovecraft Totori. So we're going to review Lovecraft Country. Familiarize yourself with Lovecraft Country is going to be the entire review. After that, I will not be promising anybody to do anything every week. We will just make a vote every week, because I'll be damned if we say we're going to review Twilight Zone and then Sandman come out and everybody want to talk about Sandman, and now we have to wait a whole nother week. And then by the time we wait a week, ain't nobody going to... Are y'all going to be studying Sandman in a week? Because I wanted to do it this weekend. But whatever. Tori said, what did y'all... I'm not wearing it right? Okay. What season? It's only one season. Lovecraft Country is only one season, I think. I hope. So that's it, guys. Those are all my announcements. I will meet you in the Discord, where we may twerk in peace and in privacy. Thank you for coming. I'm gonna go back over to Themis's live and twerk some more and see what's going on there. I think I've missed a lot. See you guys there. Bye-bye.